the poverty line, which was your transition into more of a fine art conceptual photographer. And I must mention that this transition also, you started to partner more with your wife Lin Hui, didn't you? And so
Yes,
this
yes.
is quite a transition in your life. So I was wondering if you could, talk a little bit about this, the poverty line project, which has also been very,
Mhm,
very successful. But and you know why did you choose this way to use photography
mm,
to show this concern that you have around
mm.
poverty, and why did you use photography as a way to in this way to communicate this issue?
Yeah. I think first of all, I would like to say that um, it on hindsight, it feels like I planned for all this. But
Sure.
in actual fact, I stumbled onto it, felt it
Mhm.
was a good direction, and went 10 years with it,
Yeah.
and not expecting much from what we were doing. So um and that's how, I mean, looking back, that's how my life felt like, many junctures. um
Mm.
so for example, this project, um it happened when I was living in New York. I was living in New York for a bit.
Mhm.
After my Everest, I was assisting photographers there, and what I found was that, when I was in New York, I was working for different photographers. I was learning from some of them. And what I felt was really fascinating, which I didn't see when I was in Asia, was that everyone was hustling to get jobs,
Mhm.
but everyone also had a personal project that spanned months, years, decades.
Okay. Interesting.
It was this consistent spirit which I felt was very New York. People were very obsessed with their life's work, but they were also obsessed with their daily bread.
Mm.
And so it felt like New York was always alive. Like everyone was struggling, everyone was alive, everyone felt like they had a bigger purpose. And it was also during this time where I saw the wealth disparity within the New York City itself. I was a struggling assistant, but I was better off than many people I saw on the streets who were homeless, who were begging on the streets, and and it and I realized that this was a situation that I never noticed so keenly before. And so I
Mhm.
spoke to my girlfriend, Hui. Then we were still dating. And that's when we started putting our minds together. And she came from an economics background.
Mhm.
And and then, of course, I came from a photojournalist background then. And we discussed this topic over a period of 2 years about this topic. Like, it wasn't like,
Wow,
oh,
2
let's talk
years.
about poverty. It was like,
Yeah.
on and off. It was on and off. It's like I would see an article, I would see a situation, she would see something, and then we kind of like just converse that on top of all our other conversations. And
Mm.
somehow we were both obsessed about this topic, and eventually we felt we needed to do something about it. And so it was really a matter of putting our minds together, and we created the first project, the Poverty Line, in China, when we were living
Mhm.
here. And it was really photographing the food that a poor person can get in a single day, calculated
Mm.
at the poverty line of that country. And we would place the food on the day's newspaper. And I would photograph it in a consistent manner.
Mhm.
In some ways, back in 2010, I wasn't really a commercial photographer yet, but I think this was really bringing back uh, the experience I had with my stint as a
As a
photo
food
assistant
photographer,
to
as the assistant,
to
yeah.
food photographer. Yes, and
Exactly.
um, and then during then, I just wanted things to feel consistent. And
Mm.
Hui's perception is that we need to see the food clearly. This is not a
Mhm.
creative project. This was a
Mm.
project where we kind of like are able to see the scale, is able to see the quantity of food on newspapers, and we did it. And then we also decided to spend that across all the countries that we were going to, and that was a moment where my commercial photography career was taking off. And
Mhm.
so over the last 10 years, we managed to photograph 36 countries across 6
Wow.
continents. A lot of this was piggybacking on commercial assignments I was doing.
Mhm.
And,
So this
and
project, actually, for those who aren't familiar with the poverty line, I mean, it's not just a couple of pictures of food in different countries. I mean, you have hundreds, probably thousands by now
thousands.
in this
Yeah.
series. And I
Yes.
remember seeing it in an exhibition here in Beijing, I think at Three Shadows, where the
Mm.
walls are just filled with
Yes.
photos, different
Yes.
types of food, photographed in different types of countries. So this one photograph doesn't do it justice, really. Imagine, for those of you listening, imagine standing in a room surrounded by hundreds of photos of different types of food photographed in exactly this way from different countries. Is really, it needs to be kind of seen to be experienced, I think.
Mm. Um, yeah, it's it falls back to simple accumulation, right?
Mm,
And I think the Everest, sorry, the Poverty Line project, when it
mm,
started, I think it was very simple. It was so simple that no one felt it was interesting except for
mhm,
the two of us. Um, and as we started accumulating the countries, as we scale up in a
mhm.
sense of doing these projects across time, I think that's when the project started finding its voice. And
It's interesting.
today, this project has basically propelled us to become artists.
Yeah.
Um, like I did not set out to do this as
But
art,
it came
but
from you and Hui, did it? It came from your natural observation about what was, happening around you when you're in New York, and then you collaborated with each other. You came up with an idea. No one assigned you this project.
no
It
one
just
assigned us. Yeah.
came from yourselves, from your conversations, from your experiences, and then you believed in yourself to go out and start, one chapter, which became two chapters, which became three, and it's become this huge project. And I just think that's really important for, aspiring photographers
Mm,
to learn, is that you have to be observant about where you are in the world and the issues that you see around you, and then, have faith to find an idea, a way to photograph an issue in a slightly new, different way, and then put your voice to it, and then go out into the world and try to execute it and see where it takes you. And I think this project is a really great example of that.
yeah, I mean, it was. I think this project opened more doors than we ever imagined. We've met
Mhm.
such interesting people. We've met institutions. We've lectured in front of like top economists, academics,
Yeah.
and this was breathtaking. Like you think that Everest is great, but and this art opens again. It opens up the big front door.
Mhm.
Mm.
Mhm. Which kind of leads us on to this next image, which I've just brought up on screen, which was, I don't want to say it was a sequel to the Poverty Line. This is from the Equivalence Project. Which, again, I remember when I first saw this, and I was like, "What am I looking at here?"
Yeah.
I knew that I was looking at something new, and I knew you and Hui, and I knew the ways that you were thinking about using photography. And when you explained to me the idea behind this particular image and the ideas that you were trying to talk about, again, photography has just become this tool to express an idea and express your concept and perception of issues. And that's what I love
Mm.
about how your photography is developed beyond just, a traditional type of storytelling to this more conceptual way of telling stories and raising your concerns about the world. for those who haven't seen this image in particular, what are they looking at here?
So this particular image, you can see there are three fish in the middle, and of course, it's full of fish, right?
Mhm.
Um, but in particular, I'm talking about a story of the three fish in the middle and the fish
Mm.
around it. The three fish in the middle is a very popular fish in China. It's called the giant yellow crocker, 大黄鱼, and you can get it commonly in supermarkets today. They steam it, and people love them. And what they don't realize is that these three fish used to be caught in the wild, and this was something that fishermen would go out and fish them. But
Mm.
then over the years, especially with China's economic boom, the fish started dwindling in the sea, and so they resorted to farming them. And farming the fish felt really viable because you keep the supplies constant, you keep the price constant as well. But what happens is the fishermen need to feed this fish because they are carnivorous fish,
Mm.
and this is very apparent in the ecosystem in the sea where big fish eat smaller fish. So, but what happens when fish farming takes place on an industrial scale is the fisherman goes back out and then they start catching fish. They are termed as trash fish, and these are all the fish around those three fishes, and they
Mhm.
need to catch them in order to feed the farm fish. And so we calculated with scientists. We actually went to actual fishing ports in southern China, and we collected all the fish samples, including the yellow crocker and the trash fish, and we photographed them individually. And in a
How long
way,
did
this
that
is
take?
uh, the planning on the concept took a couple of months. I think we
Mm.
needed to get this by concept wise, but
Mhm.
the actual shoot took place about over a period of a week.
Okay.
And my back was very sore after that because we basically rented a basketball court in
Really? Okay.
near this fishing port.
Mm.
And so the canvas that you see is basically the basketball court, which is green in color for some
Wow.
reason.
Okay. Yeah.
And then my assistants would lay the fish out in the open, and I would
Mhm.
photograph them individually. And then after that, we go through the process of piecing the photographs together to
Yeah.
create this mosaic. And so it is, in a way, it's a visual depiction of a food chain, where the three yellow crockers are surrounded by the fish that they need to
Mhm.
eat in their lifetime to reach market size. And obviously, this is viewed by a human who kind of completes the food chain.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, there are vegans and there are people who don't eat fish, but but farm fishing is basically engineered and designed for human consumption.
Yeah, it's such an interesting approach, and to see, to see that evolution for you as a photographer, that now, the camera is just this tool for you to communicate your ideas and your feelings and perceptions about the world, about these different issues. It's I think it's a do you feel more comfortable in this space now, just working on these issues rather than, you know, taking a more traditional process? This is the place where you're most comfortable at the moment with photography?
I don't know. I like the balance. Like even
Mm.
today, I still do commercial work.
Ah.
So where I take singular, nice photos of humans to places, and then
Mm.
at the same time, conceptually on art projects, we are doing even bigger projects, and not everything is photography based now. We just did something that is video based, that is film based,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
then I still document my children. So I still document my children on a daily basis, and I feel that with my children, it's it's simple. It cannot be too complicated.
Yeah, of
And
course. Do you need
and I
that
think that,
balance between the two, between the simplicity and the, the complexity of those bigger projects with the big ideas, big concepts?
yeah, I actually like the balance, and I like the variety, and I
Mm,
feel that swinging from one to the other
mhm,
makes your mind constantly think. And I suppose that one genre that I had to give up is the photojournalism part of it, the
mhm.
news part of it. Yeah, that is something that I have done less of, because the art
Yeah.
has really kept us quite busy. The combination of art and commercial work have really kept me quite busy, and those two things have done well, and I think it's bounce spots. I think that that's how I try to constantly evolve. Sometimes
Mhm.
um, you feel like you're evolving, and then you're just following trends. And sometimes you're evolving, and then you're like, oh, this is something that you feel very comfortable in. And so I feel like with evolution, you constantly make mistakes, and you assess them, and you try to move on.